Welcome to the ACE Project, brought to you by the Literacy.io team at Texas A&M University. I'm your host, Ashley Stack, also known as Captain Comprehension. We are so excited you'll be joining us on this reading journey and hope you and your child enjoy this time together. So get comfy, rev up your brains, and get ready to think, because we are ready to help you become a comprehension detective.
Welcome back, Super Readers. My name is Captain Comprehension, and I am here to guide you as you become a comprehension detective. Welcome to week 21 of our podcast. This week, we're reading one of my favorite books of all time, The Legend of the Bluebonnet by Tommy DePaula. Have you ever had to give up your most prized possession? Today, we are going to read The Legend of the Bluebonnet to see how a little girl gave up her most prized possession to overcome an obstacle her people were facing. Before we begin, let's go over some important vocabulary that will help us better understand the passage. Our first word is famine. Famine means a great shortage. A synonym or word that means the same might be drought, scarcity, starvation. And an antonym or opposite could be plenty, abundance, or wealth. Then we have the word distant. Distant means far behind. A synonym or word that means the same might be far away or far off, and an antonym or opposite could be close or near. Next we have the word sacrifice. Sacrifice is an act of giving up something precious. A synonym or word that means the same could be offering, and an antonym or opposite could be keeping. Last, we have the word restored. Restored means to bring back to a previous state. A synonym or word that means the same might be return, renew, or recreate. And an antonym or opposite could be damage, destroy, or harm. Pause your videos. It's time to kick off our texting survey. You're going to text POD21, that's POD21, to 866-903-2545. This will get your question started. Which word is an antonym for famine? A. Abundance. B. Drought. C. Familiar. D. Starvation. Which word or words help the reader to understand the definition of the word sacrifice? A. Hand-me-downs. B. Burnt offering. C. Moocher. D. Selfish. It's time for us to read our story. I hope you enjoy The Legend of the Bluebonnet. Great spirits, the land is dying. Your people are dying too, the long line of dancers sang. Tell us what we have done to anger you. End this drought. Save your people. Tell us what we must do so you will send the rain that will bring back life. For 3 days the dancers danced to the sound of the drums, and for 3 days the people, called Comanche, watched and waited. And even though the hard winter was over, no healing rains came. Drought and famine are hardest on the very young and the very old. Among the few children left was a small girl named She Who Is Alone. She sat by herself watching the dancers. In her lap was a doll made from buckskin, a warrior doll. The eyes, nose, and mouth were painted on with the juice of berries. It wore beaded leggings and a belt of polished bone. On its head were brilliant blue feathers from the bird who cries, "Jay, Jay, Jay." She loved her doll very much. Soon, She Who Is Alone said to her doll, the shaman will go off alone to the top of the hill to listen for the words of the great spirits. Then we will know what to do so that once more the rains will come and the earth will be green and alive. The buffalo will be plentiful and the people will be rich again. As she talked, she thought of the mother who made the doll, of the father who brought the blue feathers. She thought of the grandfather and grandmother she had never known. They were all like shadows. It seemed long ago that they had died from the famine. The people had named her and cared for her. The warrior doll was the only thing she had left from those distant days. "The sun is setting," the runner called as he ran through the camp. "The shaman is returning." The people gathered in a circle, and the shaman spoke. "I have heard the words of the great spirits," he said. "The people have become selfish. For years they have taken from the earth without giving anything back. The great spirits say the people must sacrifice. We must make a burnt offering of the most valued possession among us. The ashes of this offering shall then be scattered to the 4 points of the earth, the home of the winds. When this sacrifice is made, drought and famine will cease. Life will be restored to the earth and to the people. The people sang a song of thanks to the great spirits for telling them what they must do. "I'm sure it is not my new bow that the great spirits want," a warrior said. "Or my special blanket," a woman added, as everyone went to their teepees to talk and think over what the great spirits had asked. Everyone, that is, except she who is alone. She held her doll tightly to her heart. "You," she said, looking at the doll, "you are my most valued possession. It is you the great spirits want." And she knew what she must do. As the council fires died out and the teepee flaps began to close, the small girl returned to the teepee where she slept, to wait. The night outside was still except for the distant sound of the night bird with the red wings. Soon everyone in the teepee was asleep, except she who is alone. Under the ashes of the teepee fire, one stick still glowed. She took it and quietly crept out into the night. She ran to the place on the hill where the great spirits had spoken to the shaman. Stars filled the sky, but there was no moon. "O great spirits," she who is alone said, "here is my warrior doll. It is the only thing I have from my family who died in this famine. It is my most valued possession. Please accept it." Then gathering twigs, she started a fire with the glowing fire stick. The small girl watched as the twigs began to catch and burn. She thought of her grandmother and grandfather, her mother and father, and all the people, their suffering, their hunger, and before she could change her mind, she thrust the doll into the fire. She watched until the flames died down and the ashes had grown cold. Then scooping up a handful, she who is alone scattered the ashes to the home of the winds, the north and the east, the south and the west. And there she fell asleep until the first light of the morning sun woke her. She looked out over the hill, and stretching out from all sides where the ashes had fallen, the ground was covered with flowers, beautiful flowers, as blue as the feathers and the hair of the doll, as blue as the feathers of the bird who cries, "Jay, Jay, Jay." When the people came out of their teepees, they could scarcely believe their eyes. They gathered on the hill with she who is alone to look at the miraculous sight. There was no doubt about it. The flowers were a sign of forgiveness from the great spirits. And as the people sang and danced their thanks to the great spirits, a warm rain began to fall, and the land began to live again. From that day on, the little girl was known by another name, one who dearly loved her people. And every spring, the great spirits remember the sacrifice of a little girl and fill the hills and valleys of the land now called Texas with the beautiful blue flowers, even to this very day. I sure hope you enjoyed that story, Comprehension Detectives. I know it's one of my special favorites. So as I was reading, I was thinking, what is the text structure of the legend of the Bluebonnet? Well, here are some of the clues I heard. The people were selfish. There was a severe drought, and they were dying. In the end, there was healing rain, and things came back to life. And we heard this word valued. Was there a problem? Was it solved? Do we know what caused the problem? Use your text structure bookmark to figure out the text structure for the legend of the Bluebonnet. When you're ready, pause your video. What is the text structure of the passage? A. Comparison. B. Cause and effect. C. Problem and solution. D. Cause, problem, and solution. You're doing great work, super readers. It's time for us to write our main idea. The text structure of this passage is cause, problem, and solution. So let's use the sentence stems. The cause is, the problem is, the solution is. Pause your video and text in your answer to this now. Welcome back, super readers. Here's what I wrote for my main idea. How does yours compare? The cause was the great spirits were angry with the Comanche people and put the land in a drought. The problem was people were dying from hunger. The solution was she who is alone gave her most prized possession to save her people. It's time for us to answer a multiple choice question like the ones we might see on our tests. What is the best main idea of the selection? Remember, we're looking for the answer that contains the cause, the problem, and the solution. A. The great spirits were angry with the Comanche people. Many people had died for a long time from the famine, including family members of she who is alone. B. Giving up a most prized possession would bring rain to the people. No one wanted to give up their bow or special blanket. C. The great spirits were angry with the Comanche, putting the land in a drought. Many died until she who is alone gave her prized doll to save them. D. Bluebonnets now fill the land of Texas to thank she who is alone for saving the Comanche people. Great work, detectives! Now let's extend our main idea to write a summary of the passage. We have to first think back to our main idea. The cause was the great spirits were angry with the Comanche people and put the land in a drought. The problem was people were dying from hunger. The solution was she who is alone gave her most prized possession to save her people. Pause your video and talk about what details you could add to the cause, the problem, and the solution to extend this into a summary. When you're ready, push play to see what I wrote. Hey there, detectives! Here's what I wrote for my summary. The cause was the great spirits were angry with the Comanche people and put the land in a drought for many years. The problem was the youngest and oldest people were dying from hunger, including many members of she who is alone's family. The solution was she who is alone gave her most prized possession, a warrior doll made by her mother, to save her people. The spirits remember her sacrifice with blue flowers every spring. Now let's answer a multiple choice summary question like what we might see on our tests. Remember, you're looking for the answer choice that contains the cause, the problem, and the solution, plus a few added details. What is the best summary of the selection? A. The great spirits were angry with the Comanche people and brought a drought to their land. Later, the great spirits were satisfied again and brought blue flowers to the people. B. She who is alone lost many people to hunger. She lost her mother, father, grandmother, and grandfather. The only thing she had to remember them by was a warrior doll made with the feathers of the bird who cries, "Jay, Jay, Jay." C. The great spirits brought a long drought to the land to show their anger with the Comanche. The people were dying, including she who is alone's family. She gave up the warrior doll from her mother to save her people. Now Texas has blue flowers every spring to remember her. D. The shaman spoke to the winds of the great spirits. He was told to have his people give a sacrifice of a most prized possession. The people, except for a little girl, felt it couldn't be their bow or blanket the great spirits wanted. You're doing great work, detectives. You're almost to the end. It's time for us to infer. Remember, when we infer, we use the information we read and some clues we already have in our brains to draw conclusions or make an inference. What can the reader conclude about the days before the famine? Why does the author include the paragraph beginning with, "I'm sure it is not my new beau"? Pause and think about these questions. When you're ready, press play. What can the reader conclude about the days before the famine? A. Conditions were the same for the Comanche people as they were during the time of the famine. B. The people had an abundance of food and lived in a time of plenty. C. Bluebonnets already filled the land before the famine. D. Only the young and old were affected by the days before the famine. Pause your videos and text in your answers now. Why does the author include the paragraph beginning with, "I'm sure it is not my new beau"? A. To show that the people were selfish and not willing to give up their prized possessions. B. To show that none of the other people had anything to give the great spirits. C. To give value to the bow since it could be used to hunt. D. To give value to the special blanket since it could be useful. Pause your videos and text in your answers now. Thank you so much for joining us this week, Comprehension Detectives. I hope you enjoyed reading The Legend of the Bluebonnet just as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'm looking forward to joining you again next week. Remember, we can all be super readers. This is Captain Comprehension signing off.